Welcome back to Not Easy Being Geeky. This is a podcast where me, Rachel, the host, usually goes into rants about the struggles of being geeky and nerd culture. However, today, it's going to be a little bit more chill. I don't think I'll get angry in this episode. My husband just gave me the most, posh look you've ever seen in your life. I don't think I'll get angry in this episode. I can't guarantee anything, but
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I can't help it. I get passionate. But today, we talked about this a little bit, how I had planned to do like a Studio Ghibli series, where like once a month I kind of go in depth into some of the movies, ones I haven't seen, ones I have seen. And I thought a great one to start with would be one of my all-time favorites, Howl's Moving Castle. This movie is just so special to me. Studio Ghibli films in general are some of my favorite movies of all time. I've always adored these movies since I was a kid. They've just always been so captivating to me. They really get me in like a state to where, I mean, even as a kid, you know how hard it is to get a kid to like sit and watch a full movie? Well, that was never an issue when my mom put on one of these movies for me. And the funny thing is I've touched on this before. My mom had no clue that these were like anime movies or anything like that. She just thought whenever she got these movies for me that the artwork was so pretty, you know, she just got them for me. And then my mom actually liked the movie Kiki's Delivery Service. She thought it was very cute. And my mom's not really one to be into anime or anything, so she was not prepared to have 3 kids that were very nerdy. But I always was like so quiet when watching these movies. They were just so captivating to me, even as a kid. And they're just so special to me. You know, and every time I introduce someone to them, I love to hear what they think about it. Cause usually, I mean, I've never had anyone, even people that aren't really into anime, say they didn't like one of these movies. I mean, they're beautifully illustrated and just the music in them. I mean, just so beyond what I could ever expect for an animated film, you know. And I hate to say that because yes, we have Disney, we have Pixar, but it's just so different. And I'll get into why that is later on. But it's just so beautifully done. And so I just kind of wanted to tell you guys, you know, that haven't seen it, there will be spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen it, just giving you the warning now. But if that doesn't bother you and you would like to know more about this before you see it, then stick around. If not, I will let you know Amazon has a great price for that movie right now because I just bought it again. I have another version. It's just not as high def, so I wanted an upgrade. But I have Justin here with me too. He just
not a sponsor.
No. He's here to kind of talk with me a little bit about it. But so Howl's Moving Castle. What's it about? Howl's Moving Castle is about a girl named Sophie who works in a hat shop that was owned by her father, who passed away, unfortunately, and she inherited it being the oldest. She gets cursed by a witch, and in seeking to lift her curse, she meets Howl, who's a wizard, who has been rumored to eat beautiful women's hearts. I know, crazy, right? This movie is just, for me, it's a feel-good movie. Like, anytime I'm in a bad mood, or if it's like a rainy day or something, it's the movie I want to watch to just make me feel good. It's a beautiful love story, and just, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you guys right up now, I usually hate like that lovey-dovey kind of crap. It's not my thing. Not really into like romance movies, like The Notebook and stuff like that. I'm gonna get so shit on for this. I don't like The Notebook. I don't like Titanic. Do I love Ryan Gosling? Absolutely. But that's besides the point. My husband just gave me the big eye roll.
Well, we're already going to be talking about Howl.
I know. I'm sorry. Howl is my anime husband. For those of you that don't know that, if you don't know that, it's probably because you're not following me on TikTok, because I post a shit ton of stuff about that. So much to where I talked about this last week too, but I had a wonderful one of my followers on TikTok. She drew a picture of me with Howl, and I love it so much. I want to get it blown up so bad. I love it so much. It's me with Howl. It's so cute. I love it so much. Anyway, so I gave her a little shout out in that episode. So make sure you go follow her. Check out that episode from last week, and go follow her. She's awesome. She's so sweet. Also, but yeah, Hal is my anime husband, and Christian Bale voices him in the dubbed version, which I think is so dope. Batman plays Hal. So my favorite superhero plays my anime husband. That cracks me up. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little off track. Okay, so Howl's Moving Castle, wonderful movie, and so I kind of wanted to go deep into this movie and like figure out like what influenced it, you know, whether it be cultural or anything of that nature, what kind of helped build this movie. And I do know that there is a book, which is what the movie was based on. I always knew that, but well, not as a kid, but as I got older, I figured that out. And I always knew that, you know, there was probably bound to be differences in them. But from what I hear, I have not actually read the book. Sorry. I plan on it. So maybe we could do a follow-up episode where I do a full breakdown on what the differences are. But from my understanding, the main ones that I've found, from trying not to get too spoiled, because I do want to read the book, the main differences I've heard were that Sophie has an additional sister, which blew my mind, because in the movie it's just Letty, and the Witch of the Waste, which I found very creepy in this aspect, instead of trying to just steal Hal's heart, she is actually trying to steal his head, because she's been stealing men's body parts to create the perfect man. So I thought that was kind of dark for what's a children's book, essentially. But I'm totally down to read that, because I'm not one for gore or horror, but I do love some true crime shit. I love true crime shit, and that totally sounds like some true crime shit to me. But yeah, and apparently Hal's appearance is actually very different from what was illustrated in the movie. But it is my understanding that the writer of Howl's Moving Castle, the book, has a very high appreciation for Miyazaki, and same with him. He has a very high respect for her work as well. So that's kind of why it happened, and she's been, I've heard that she actually really adores the movie, even though they are so different. So that's awesome. In that case, because that's not always the case. Avatar: The Last Airbender. God, that movie's horrible. Oh man, I mean, I already talked about that, but you guys know that's a piece of shit film. And so Miyazaki, you know, when he made this movie, you know, he didn't, I guess he didn't want to take away from the story, so he kept a lot of it the same, but there were very large differences, you know, in, like I just stated, his appearance. And to me, that kind of goes into like character design, because if you were to pay attention, if I were to show you a picture of Howl and Sophie from the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, you probably wouldn't even know it's the same people. They look very different, but it's so cool because throughout the entire movie, they're constantly changing. And it reflects on that character's growth very vividly in this sense, because it's so instant with as they're changing their growth as a character. So it's in the literal sense in this way that, yes, there is a physical change and an emotional change, which I thought was so interesting. And it's a great choice because that shows real depth in character design. Because in the beginning of the movie, you see Hal with this blonde hair, this very flamboyant jacket, and he's very like poised in a way and cocky, I would say. Um, Very arrogant and I know I'm saying this about my husband. I'm so sorry, Hal. Uh, as my other husband, my real husband's here.
Other husband.
My other. Yeah.
Continue on.
So as my real husband's here, I'm sorry, babe. But yeah, it's very, and then you see the physical change in him when Sophie ruins his hair, as he says. After that, he's just in very simple clothes, just a white shirt, black pants, no flamboyant jacket. He still has his jewelry, but not as much as he was wearing.
Black hair.
Black hair, exactly. Yeah, so it's a much more calm character at that from then on out. He starts to trust Sophie, console to her, trust her, rely on her. It's real growth in a character. And Sophie, hers is very physical. I mean, she gets cursed by the Witch of the Waste, who the curse essentially is reflecting on how Sophie views herself. And so she has never seen herself as beautiful. And so the Witch of the Waste curses her to appear as an old woman, which I guess in a sense reflects Sophie because she is the eldest and she always viewed herself as the eldest and all this responsibility and that she was never able to amount to anything else. And so she kind of reflects that on her own appearance, I guess, in a sense, So her being the eldest literally and visually, so it's funny in that sense that that's how that happens. And throughout the movie you notice Sophie starts to change to her younger self again and then revert back to an old woman. And it's always when she starts to like gain her confidence or starts to realize her true feelings for Howl.
Or she's not consciously
exactly, like when she's asleep,
Mm-hmm.
She reverts back to her normal self, her younger self. And it's like I said, it's just such a good way of character design because apparently in the book, she stays an old woman the entire time until the curse is actually lifted. So I think this was such an interesting tone in the Miyazaki version because it shows that, she is actually like conscious of it. And it's showing the curse itself, in its peak and in its lows. And the curse does not actually get lifted until, she realizes her true self. It's a wonderful movie. I really, really love this movie.
Well, I think the first time that you actually see like her back in that younger self when she's sleeping is it actually when Hal comes home late that
Yes,
night.
exactly. Yeah, he comes and he checks on Sophie, and she's asleep, and you see her in her normal, I hate to say normal, in her younger self, her actual self. And so, it's clear that she has to think about this. That it's not something that's just there. She has to consciously think about it, which shows how often she really thinks poorly of herself, which is sad, Um, and
But how common is that for
yeah,
you to think negatively about yourself?
exactly. Just it's very sad because throughout, even at the very beginning of the film, you notice she's like, I think the first line she says is like when someone from the shop is like, all right, Sophie, let's go for the day. We've worked enough. Da, 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 da. And she says, you guys go on without me. And, you guys go have fun. She stays to finish her work. That's just, She like feels like she's unworthy, I guess, in that sense, to go have fun, because she later says that to her sister too, Letty, when when she's leaving the bakery, when Letty says, you need to do something for yourself, Sophie. And she says, oh, I don't mind, taking care of Dad's old shop. And she says, you don't have to, though. You can do something for yourself for once. And it's like her sister, I guess, trying to like get a hold of her, like, you can do so much more. You can have a happy life. You don't have to settle, you know? And it's just it's very apparent how little she thinks of herself and how poorly she views her own self. Um and like I said, that makes great character building, because or character design, because you see that physical change in her um throughout the entire movie. And
But also very relatable for any
oh
audience
yeah.
member
Oh
watching it. I
yeah.
mean,
I love Miyazaki films so much because they like almost always have a very, I think they all do actually, now that I'm thinking about it, have a female lead, and she's empowered, and realistic body expectations. Let's just say that he never tries to beautify them in any way. Um just very realistic. I feel like in I hate to shit on Disney because I do love Disney, but if you ever look at the Disney princesses, their waists are the size of my pinky. That's not real. And as a child, you're seeing that, and then you think, oh God, I have to be that skinny. It can be very damaging to a young girl that she doesn't look like her favorite Disney princess. You know what I mean? So, i- in that sense, I always loved these movies because they never made the female leads look, I hate to use the word perfect, but, the ideal version of perfect in what is the world today. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's changed throughout history. Like back in like Greek mythology, you had to have them hips and curves,
yeah, they don't lie.
yeah, they don't lie. If you look at those statues, there's rolls, and you know what I mean? And it's like that was considered beautiful then, and now it's like you have to be a twig. Or now, like, the ideal is Kim Kardashian, which, by the way, her whole body is fake. So no one actually looks like that. So does her sister Kylie. I don't know if you noticed this, but them lip kids don't actually do what her lips do. She has fake lips. That's how she was able to sell those things, okay? So no one actually looks like that. And it makes me mad sometimes to see, like, that unreal, idealistic version of a woman, because it's not possible. It's not. I mean, to get your waist that skinny, you would die. Like, you would actually die. You'd probably have to remove a few ribs, too. Just saying, no one actually looks like that. Um, so it's just, unreal. And it always made me feel good to see these women just look like real women. And, it's just, the character design in these movies is so perfect, just from the detail of the colors of their hair, so many little things. Like Sophie's dress changes too in the movie so many times. She goes from her more green toned, muted dress to this blue, to then a vibrant blue that Howl makes for her. To like, and he even says to her, wow, you're gonna put that ugly hat on when I just used all this magic to make your dress so pretty. Like it's clear that she's trying to cover up and try not to be seen, you know? And just I love the love story in this, because Sophie in turn helps Hal realize um that he could be a good person, and same for Sophie. Hal helps her realize that she isn't unworthy of love and happiness. Um I love this movie so much, and like I said, I wanted to go more in depth into like the cultural aspects of it, because sometimes we may not understand everything, being in the Western world, as to why a movie is done that way. And so I kind of got into this, and apparently Shinto is an ancient religion that is still to this day heavily influenced in Japan in their culture. So that's why they have like all those shrines still, and nature is just very respected there. You don't see any littering. Like really, it's like you get like from what I've heard is that you know, if you litter there, you're gonna get death glares. So very opposite of my New Yorkers here, you know, from where I grew up. But it's apparently very influenced because of the Shinto religion, which is very opposite of what, you know, the Western culture is, and like Christianity and to where man has dominion over everything, and so it's basically the opposite of that, whereas to there's a high respect for nature and that everything is connected, and humans essentially are not the center of the world. And so it in this sense, it's instead of, you know, there being a higher god, there's multiple gods that share that are referred to as kami, and everything is connected. It's not that one is higher than the other necessarily. It's that they're all connected and there's a high respect for that. um and so, like, I saw this video and it was a good way to explain it, as to where we may see a big tree and we're like, wow, that's a big fucking tree. Uh, Instead, they may see it as, wow, this is a higher thing and we need to respect it. Take a moment and respect it, you know? Um, and that kind of made a lot of sense to me, because if you watch all these movies, there is such a respect for nature in them. I mean, if you look at the scenery and everything, um, I mean, perfect example would be um why can't I think? Princess Mononoke. I mean, literally a battle between the forest and humans, you know, because they were tearing it down for their own personal gain. So that's a very literal sense to it. But if you really pay attention to a lot of these movies, it's subtle. Like in My Neighbor Totoro, where they bow to the tree which Totoro resides to pay it respect for protecting Mei. It's just little things, you know? So I thought that was so interesting that this religion has such a high influence in the culture, still to this day. Even though they may not practice it, there's you know, or they may not, you know, necessarily fully practice the religion. There's little things that they do in that practice throughout to pay it respect. So I thought that was very interesting. And it made a lot of sense to me when I was watching these movies. Because there is such a detail to the nature scenes and the respect for it. Thought that was really interesting. So probably gonna be hearing me talk more about that in other videos when I do more of this series. Going more depth into it, because I would like to learn more about it. I think it's interesting. Um, and so going back into the story of House Moving Castle, um, I've watched this movie so many times, and it just no matter how many times I see it, it makes me happy to watch it. And um, I was talking to Justin the last night, I think it was, and I asked him which he preferred, Spirited Away or House Moving Castle, and we both had the same answer. Spirited Away is still my favorite film, but for a very different reason than House Moving Castle. And what did you say?
They're different moods.
Yes,
They both have different kind of energies to them. Because Spirited Away,
a little
it's
more
a
intense.
it's an intense.
And
It's
not, and we don't mean intense like action, action, action. I mean like it's just a feeling of intensity. It sometimes it gets you like, you
because it
know,
takes place in one structure, one building,
yes.
as opposed. I mean, not the full movie, but there's a lot more mystery that's being uncovered that you don't ever really get the answers to. That's just it seems like
It's all to your interpretation, you know.
it kind of feels like there's a finish line to it of the I can't remember the girl's name in the, Spirited Away, but
Chihiro.
yeah, she's trying to, save her parents,
Yeah, yeah, I see what
Howl's
you're
Moving
saying.
Castle,
Yeah, there is no ending.
it's a
Essentially, I mean, they show the final clip where they kiss and, happily ever after, but there is no necessarily a sense of that's the end of the journey.
exactly, because Spirited Away,
There
it's a
was a
sense
goal. There was a
there's a
goal.
goal, there's just all kinds of mystery all wrapped up into, like, one bean burrito, you know,
Yeah.
and but,
Man, do you wanna get, Gezos later?
maybe.
Sorry, I
Um
had to say that. Gezos is the shit where we live, anyway.
But no, there's a different kind of mood, like how you were saying there, when you watch Howl's Moving Castle, it's the perfect feel-good movie, it's a good movie to watch when it's raining, it's just a movie that makes you feel
It's a
happy at the
calm.
end. Yes,
Yeah, it's a
it
calm.
and that is the difference between Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle to me, to
Yeah.
where there is calmness in Spirited Away, but at the same time, it's a lot of hectic stuff
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, and we watched this awesome video, which very much explains all of the Miyazaki films, where it's soft world building.
Yes,
Um, and
versus,
versus what was it? Hard world building? I think so. Um, I'm pretty sure that's what
it's
it
something like
was.
that.
And the example they gave was Spirited Away versus The Lord of the Rings. How there is, like, in Lord of the Rings, there's, I wish I could remember the video so I could give this
There's
person
very much a
credit.
real world aspect of as far as, like, how governments work, how, what's going on in the wars, and
Yes,
it's
the
explaining.
language. I mean, really, like, every little detail, like, Tolkien put into thought. He literally invented the language of Elvish and thought of each of these characters' backstories and every little thing. But in Miyazaki films, it leaves it up to the interpretation of the watcher. You know, there isn't necessarily, like, sometimes they'll give you a little detail, but they never really go too in depth into it. Like Yubaba, how she had made this promise to always give someone a job if they ask, that's such a small detail, but you don't know as to why she made that promise. You know what I mean? So, in Spirited Away. So it's just little things like that they give you enough, but not the full story. So it's so interesting because, in Howl's Moving Castle, that also makes so much sense because, like I said, you don't really know anything about, like, Sophie's family very much, other than that she has a sister, a mother, her father passed, but you don't know how her father passed. You don't know her relationship with her sister, which I hear is actually very different in the book. Like, there is a little bit of storytelling in the background of that. You don't know much about Howl, really. Like, all you know is that he had an apprenticeship. He became a wizard. He saved Calcifer, and little things like that, which I also want to get into depth into the great character design of Howl, because Howl, he's seen as the selfish character. But I think it's so ironic because he was selfless as a child and saved Calcifer, um, life, and gave up his heart to Calcifer so he would live. And so, like I said, the character design is so perfect because if you think about it, yes, Hal is flamboyant and narcissistic and selfish, but it kind of makes sense because he was a kid when that happened. So he's actually, if you think about it, he's very underdeveloped. You know what I mean? In the mind sense. Um, so it makes sense because as a kid, he was so selfless and gave essentially his life to help someone. And he's grown to be just this person. So it's like a kid that never really grew up. A kid would display a tantrum and, that need for someone to always do something for him or, like, I want to do this, so I'm going to do this. A kid would do that. So it kind of makes sense in that aspect of this character that in one sense was so selfless and then just never grew up.
But influenced by the world and the
Yeah,
sense of, growing, into the
exactly.
with the shoulder,
Yeah,
you you know?
exactly. With a chip on his shoulder. I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Yeah.
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 Sorry, I talk with my hands a little hard and,
Yeah. Yeah. And so it makes sense why he would be so arrogant and not, I mean, like, perfect example, like, he even states this, like, in the film, you know, when he sends Sophie to essentially get him out of having to go see the king, and then he says, "You saved me, Sophie. I would not have been able to face Solomon had you not gone there for me. I'm terrified of that woman." So he was like a kid in that sense. Like, I wasn't gonna do it. You're there to do it for me, and then I wouldn't have done it if you weren't there to protect you. He found something he wanted to protect and to love and to actually fight for. But as a kid, you know, what are you gonna do? That, like, so it makes sense. Like, he's very underdeveloped in that sense, you know. Um, but yeah, I love this man so much. He's a great character. The growth he makes, and Sophie too. I mean, she shows how strong she is throughout this movie, and she stands up for Howl, and it's in that moment you see her blossom. um and it's funny because Solomon you know, calls it out, and she says, "You're in love with him," and then she reverts back, like she didn't want to admit that that was the reason she was fighting so hard for him. It's just the character design, and it's so wonderful in this film. I love it so much. And, you know, like I said, the soft world building versus the hard world building, it makes sense because, you know, they give these small details to help the story go on, but not necessarily to a finish. That's never necessarily the goal, is to like speed it up. And actually, there's like a quote from Miyazaki that he actually apparently wanted to end Spirited Away at the scene where the train track is, where they're sitting on the train. So but he you know, continued it to help, you know, the story, but um you don't need necessarily a perfect ending, is basically what he was saying. It's okay to have like those loose ends, essentially. And the reason I feel these movies are so captivating is because, unlike, you know, like Star Wars or like Marvel movies where there's just constant like action, there is no like breath per se. It's These movies are purposefully it's actually called Ma, where there is a moment of like reflection, and I love that. It's just, I mean, think about it. Just in for me in this movie, there were a few times that was the case. Like for me, the one that sticks out in my mind right now is where Sophie and Mar- uh, Mark is his name Marco? It's gonna drive me crazy now. I can't remember his name now off the top of my head. The little boy. Anyway, I think it's Marco. Um, they stop to do laundry at Star Lake, and she says, "This place is beautiful." And they get a couple chairs, and while Turnip Head is, you know, drying the laundry, they just sit there and look at the scenery. That really isn't necessarily a necessary scene to help further the story in any way. It's just a moment of pause and calm and reflection. And I love that scene. You know, it's just quiet, calm, and it gets you to think, you know, a moment of reflection. And Miyazaki has been quoted to say that Ma is um, the moment in between a clap. So that silence before the clap is essentially what Ma is. And he says essentially that if you just have constant action, it just becomes busyness. There's no time to reflect. And not that that's bad, it's just sometimes it's okay to just take a moment and reflect. And I think that's why these movies were so captivating to me as a kid, because there was always that time of quiet, you know, and wonder. And the animation doesn't necessarily, and this is what I was saying, the animation doesn't necessarily reflect art, it's reflecting life. So, you know, they'll make a character trip when they're running, sneeze, like Totoro, even though he's this animal character, he has very human traits, like the way he snores, and, you know, little things like that. They make these characters human like, real, in a sense. So that's probably why they were so captivating to me as a kid, because it was just like, wow, that's so realistic, but obviously it's animated and I know it's fake, but it represents real life so well. Um
And also, how often in adult lives do you take a moment of ma?
yeah, just a moment of breath,
Yeah,
reflection. Yeah, exactly.
because we can get very
Oh
overwhelmed
yeah, especially
all of the
us.
time. Yeah,
Like
it
we're
was go, 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 it's nonstop, and then that moment before the clap, as you poetically put it.
he put it that way. I was
Okay,
not, yeah, not me. I will not take credit for that.
you got it. Uh, but that moment, w how many of us just ignore those moments
Yeah,
because our schedules, I mean, everybody has that moment where they need to take, or I'm sorry, everybody has that life where those weeks, those months, those days where it's just always
yeah,
busy,
just go,
and
go, go.
it can be overwhelming, and you don't realize it until it's way past when you do need it. So
Yeah,
I think it's very good to see these movies with that moment because it kind of makes you want to have that moment. It makes
yeah,
you remember the small things
yeah.
and how important those actually are.
Yeah, it's just like I said, those little things, they're so beautifully animated, that I mean, like I said, that scene with at Star Lake, I mean, you see all the winding just rows of obviously dirty clothes that Hal never cleaned, and Sophie, it's just the little thing, it makes you think like, wow, Hal has never done laundry a day in his life, or which also very kid-like, He just, why would a kid wanna do laundry? You see the house is a wreck, and Sophie comes in and, like, figuratively and literally cleans up his life. You know what I mean? Helps him grow and blossom in a way. And it's just I mean, just the little details, like I said, it just makes me so happy. These movies are so beautifully done, and, I touched on this a little bit last time, in last week's episode, how I'm a little upset that they are going the 3D route in this new film, and that makes me sad because Miyazaki loves 2D animation, like, he's been known to say that, and for me, this is kinda like the last hope for that art style, not many people even know how to still do that. So, it's to me, it's like kinda the nail in the coffin that this art style might be going extinct, you know? I hope that's not the case with this because these movies, like I said, just the animation in them, it makes me so calm and happy, and I love it so much. I mean, so much to where in just, like, a couple months, I'm getting it tattooed on me. I mean, I adore these films, and I love them all and for different reasons. I haven't seen all of them, if you guys have any suggestions, as to some of your favorites that are kinda underrated, I'm totally willing to see them, and to talk about them. But, my personal favorites just so happen to be Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Ponyo, and My Neighbor Totoro. Those are my favorites. I adore those films very, very much. They're not saying those are my only favorites, but those are, like, my top favorites. I have not seen The Secret World of Arrietty, which I heard was amazing. I think that was one of their most recent films. I think it came out in, like, 2013 or 11 or something that era. Um, so maybe I'll watch that one next. If I'm correct, I think it's on Netflix right now, so dope shit. Ghibli films coming to Netflix. Hell yeah. Also, I'm still mad because there was that article that, like, just they didn't say it till the very end, by the way. Studio Ghibli films coming to Netflix. By the way, not the fucking US. So, thanks for that. Getting my damn hopes up. And then anyway, I have most of them, but anyway.
Remember at the beginning when you said you're not gonna get
Okay,
mad
yeah,
this
you're
episode?
right. I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay, I just ruined it. This calm feel to this episode.
Just take a moment of ma.
Okay, sorry. Was I
We're
couldn't
good.
okay,
We're
we're good.
good.
Um, But like I said, I am a little bit sad that they're going this route with the 3D animation because it's just, to me, these movies are so beautiful and so iconic and nothing's like them. You know, because yes, there's anime movies out there and things like that, but just the way they're drawn, like I've never seen anything like it. It's so distinctly Ghibli. By the way, I looked into the pronunciation of it. Turns out nobody's actually wrong, Ghibli or Ghibli. It was actually supposed to be Ghibli, and there was like a typo, and then they just kind of kept it. So the intention is both, I guess. So no one's actually wrong in the pronunciation, uh which is funny. So I thought that was a cool little fact, um to kind of help everyone that's like fighting about it. Don't fight about it. I think it's kind of like tomato, you know what I mean? Nobody actually says tomato, but people say that. Or
Pecan or pecan.
yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Pecan or pecan.
Yeah. It's a cultural thing depending
Yeah.
on how you say it.
Yeah. So
How were you raised by saying it?
yeah, I've always said Ghibli, because that's what, you know, like the inflection I saw. Anyway, but I adore these movies, and I really hope if you haven't seen Howl's Moving Castle, I gave you a reason to want to see it. And if not, go see another Ghibli film. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And I feel like, and another thing about these films is, there literally is a way they do not allow any changes because of one film. It's gonna drive me crazy. I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of the first ones that came to the States. And actually, what I think is hilarious is it was Harvey Weinstein that helped produce it, and Miyazaki actually sent like a samurai sword to him saying no cuts, no changes. Just that, like just a freaking sword, and was like, if you fucking change my movie again, like, no, there's absolutely no more changes. And so it's written that there are no changes. So the dubbed versions are actually pretty accurate to the original films, the Japanese films, except for like that one film. I will say I can't remember. It's gonna drive me crazy, the name of it. But I'm sure you guys will know it. That are Ghibli fans. It's gonna drive me crazy. It's gonna drive me absolutely freaking crazy. Anyway, we'll talk about it in the after show when I figured out. But yeah, he sent a freaking sword to him and was like, absolutely no cuts, no changes. Don't fuck with my movie, essentially. That's gangster. So yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and I gave you a reason to want to check out these movies. And if you are interested in me breaking down some more of these movies, just let me know, and let me know which ones you want me to watch. Because I love these films. They, like I said, they're my feel-good movies, and um, I will protect these movies with my life. They're just, I don't think I could ever sit and just watch somebody try to bash these movies. I would go to battle for these, like in a heartbeat.
Any idea who what movie you're gonna do next?
I think maybe The Secret World of Arrietty, because I haven't seen it. And I heard wonderful things about it. Or Mary and the Witch's Flower. That's another one I heard was really good. So we'll see. Just depends on what you guys, you know, if you guys want a specific one, let me know. Or I could do Spirited Away next. Or Totoro, any one of them. I'm down to do any of it. Just let me know. And as always, it's not easy being geeky. Hey guys, thank you for your continued support. You can check us out on all of our socials, including our website, noteasybeingeeky.com, and our Patreon. We just made a new Patreon. You can support us even further. You'll also get exclusive content, early access to episodes, and now our after show. Yes, we have an after show. It's awesome. Go check it out. And thank you again for your continued support. Every little bit helps.